Okay. This is Dev Diary. I'm making a game. Should probably give a rundown of where I'm at. I'm probably about like 6 months in now. I'm making the game in Unity and using Unity entities and dots and all that jazz. But I was originally planning to aim for WebGL, so I can't use any of the pre-built systems that Unity usually comes with. So my netcode, I have to do rendering like differently using like render mesh instance, and it's a bunch of different shaded stuff that I just can't use, and I don't know which ones I can't use, but that's okay. Anyway, starting a diary now so that I can be a bit more motivated, I think. And get out there a little bit. I think people want to hear from me. Yeah. So I'm gonna skip over 6 months of development work, and we're gonna just talk about what we did last week. So, last week on Monday, I finished most of my hopeful netcode implementation. So for context, my game is using I've got lockstep. I've got like lockstep netcode, and so for context, games are gonna use like a variation of like, or like a combination of the different types of netcode. So you have lockstep netcode, which is there's a host. They receive inputs from players, and every so often that host will say, I did a step. Everyone else, here's what happened during that step. And then everyone else does the same step. So their inputs are delayed until they get a response from the host, right? This is technically what any game with rollback does, so like fighting games and stuff, because they, when they do the rollback, what they're rolling back to is what their last verified lockstep step, right? But difference is they have prediction, we don't have prediction yet. That doesn't matter. Anyway, so last Monday finished lockstep implementation. I finished the fixed point number implementation because I was getting desynchronizations in that the host and the client were doing different things in their steps, which caused the whole game to break, because some floating point operations were different, or I thought so. They weren't, but that's okay. We have fixed point numbers now, and I can show off a little bit of what a fixed point number is. This is the project using Unity. Let's go to the physics. We'll just find a number somewhere. You. Come on. And you. And you. Here we go. So, fixed points. I'm using a third-party library that I've kind of just like hijacked and just made my own Unity mathematics. So I've like merged these two things together. So fixed point numbers, rather than floating points, they have a fixed kind of set of representations that they can do, right? This fixed point implementation, which is allegedly called Q4816, has 48 integers, like it goes up to a 48-bit integer effectively, and it's got 16 bits of decimal precision, right? So you can think of the epsilon as 1 divided by 2 to the 16. And I didn't write most of this stuff. This is them. And although I did have to change a lot of stuff to be constants, because I'm using entities, Unity entities, and anyone who's worked with this will know, and they will know my pain. And it's very hard to describe the pain. But, okay, anyone who's worked with this stuff will know that there's certain things you can't do. And it turns out you can't do statics and like static constructors very nicely inside of the Unity entities dots space, right? So entities has these things called jobs, and when they reference a value, right, like a constant value or a static value, even if it's a read-only static value, that value has to be constructed in a special, like, it can't be constructed like with any potential self-referential stuff. So, for example, if I wanted to do, one div 41, or hold on, where's a good one actually? We'll just do this. Public static read-only fp test equals test2 divided by 2, right? And then public static read-only fp test2 equals 2. If we wanted to do this, this wouldn't actually compile, right? Like, and it doesn't matter the ordering. So if I referenced test inside of Unity entities, this wouldn't be like allowed, like, at all. So we just can't do that. So I have to make everything constants. Whatever. That's a whole thing. The benefit of using these fixed point numbers is that the operations are done by us. Somebody has made this. So it's not reliant on floating point operations, which are generally always mostly done inside of the CPU. And those operations are dependent on both CPU, like, version, chipset, whatever, as well as actual, like, the person who made those, right? AMD and the other one, they have different, like, floating point operations sometimes for certain different things, because of, like, I'm going to assume, like, cascading changes inside of the actual, inside of the binary, like, oh, they made one decision somewhere, and so they had to do a bunch of different operations differently, and then the other ones are like, oh, we want to do these operations this way instead, and whatever. Or maybe it's just to piss off game devs. Wanna go in lockstep. Which is archaic. I'll give you that. So, it's funny that I'm doing it like this, because this, I'm pretty sure, this library, this FP library, which comes from, so if I open recent projects, maths, .safe, whatever. We'll cut this out, sure. So, FP, this comes from Fixed Point Shop, is the Git library. So Fixed Point Shop, there we go. So this one, and I've got a feeling that this guy, or this dev, was actually hired by Quantum. I'll be back. I'm not going to be in the same spot. This is so embarrassing. I've teleported just a little bit, just to piss you off. So, I'm pretty sure that that FP implementation is being used by Quantum, which is, funny enough, something that I ran into far too late into development. This is like lockstep rollback netcode implementation inside of Unity entities. I'm hoping that I don't regret trying to make my own one, but I gotta feel like I will. Okay, so if we go through, there's like a getting or is it tutorials? I think it's like concepts. They talk about it somewhere. They use FP, but it's capital FP, so, maybe they're doing something special. Whatever. Who cares? Yeah, so I'm pretty sure these guys are using the same one that I'm using, because they also at some point mentioned that they're using 4816 for their fixed points. So that's cool. That's nice, and that's kind of what led me over here, because I just googled that effectively, and I was like, oh hey, this public repo. Wow, I really hope I'm allowed to use that this code, but we'll worry about that when we actually make any money. I think that's probably the safest thing to say. So, anyway, Monday last week, finished implementing, finished replating every single float in the game with FPs. This took a little while. I was procrastinating a lot because it was awful. And then I started testing desynchronizations a bit more. Still desyncing, which was expected, to be honest. Which led me to testing, what's it called? Journaling. Entity journaling. So, yeah, it led me to testing entity journaling. And so Unity's entity systems has this journaling feature, which is absolutely fantastic. So inside of the editor, whenever you're actually, or even during runtime, so in an actual game, you can turn on journaling. It's very expensive, uses a lot of memory. But every single operation that they do, like inside of the actual game runtime, any operation and change or fetch and save effectively to a component of an entity is recorded in this big time list thing. So what I did is I actually I used journaling to create like really nice logs, or I used their nice logs to make nice comparison logs between two different game versions, and I compare individually the different values, I guess. So if I run a test, I have cool tests for my game. I learned that from Factorio. We did that with that. I gotta move myself so you can see this. Look, wow, look at tests. That's crazy. I'll be over here now. Where do we got? Journaling tests. Long play success. Long play d6. I'll just run this one. Whatever. Still not very good at doing tests. I'm only 28. You know, it's still a lot to learn. But you'll see. So we have this this folder, test env. So all the actual journaling logs go into here. Here we go. And we can have a look at these. So okay. So well, okay. Nothing went wrong. So it didn't record anything. But my computer's been hijacked. There we go. Okay. So you can see nothing went wrong. But it tested over. So each one of these is 10 frames. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And I'm very happy with this. This implementation, it was really good. If we have a look at the actual code for these, for the tests as well, I had to do a lot here to actually make testing these really convenient, right? So inside of one of these tests, right, I say okay, only save desyncs inside of the debugger. So that's this is an optional thing. So it's so that it just doesn't, if I'm doing a long play session, it doesn't save out 10 bajillion journaling files. It cleans out the folder, and it makes sure that there's nothing in there. Then okay, it actually sets up the game. So we set up the default server settings. We create a 2-player session. So this is just a debug. This is a testing thing, and it's similar to what if anyone out there had seen the Factorio dev video about how they are doing tests and stuff. They kind of just set up a game session in a similar way like this, or not a game session, but they set up games in a similar way to this, right? And this thing is just it creates a client on a server. It waits for the server to actually finish hosting. It runs the server for a little bit. It joins the client into it, and so it just does all of that stuff for me, so I don't have to worry about it, which is nice and convenient. So then we check desyncs per frame. We actually do the setup, and this will connect the two clients together, and then we do a step and or we do X steps. This is probably going to do 2,000 steps. And then we make sure that there's no desyncs. Like no desyncs got printed out, which is pretty cool. And so I did this. I discovered some problems, so some actual desyncs. So it turns out, and this is a good example for how how desyncs can occur in different games, right? If you remember the release for, if you know of Halo Infinite and the release of it, there was a lot of desynchronization in that, right? And implementing lockstep netcode is really, really hard. So it's pretty reasonable that they'd have desyncs. But what they had is like people, like one client would be seeing them kind of like walking like this, and another client would just see them walking into the wall, right? So the desync happened because at some point their X value was just slightly off or something, right? So it's not like an input's gotten eaten, it's like the physics has been done differently. And that actually ended up happening to me as well. So if we have a look at, it was the terrain collision system or something. So terrain collision system. So what was going on? And I'm mostly talking to myself here. I don't know how many anyone's going to be interested in this, but that doesn't really matter. This is for me. This is my journal. Yeah. So what was going on is that I had some objects, some terrain objects with a spawn animation, right? And so they go like whoop boop, right? Kind of like, you know, and pop in. It was nice. But the animation, when it ended, it would stop saying refresh my data, even though on that last frame it still changed its animation once, right? There were two ways for me to fix this. One of them is to make it not change any data on that last frame, so it would still consider itself dirty, which is better, and I should have done it that way. Or the worst way is to actually just kind of like set a flag inside of the terrain collision system to say like, hey, you're dirty, and whenever the whenever I just needed to make these pieces of terrain update themselves once more. And this was a desync, right? Because when somebody loaded up, right, they'd run this collision generation thing, this map generation, using the animation finished state rather than the state right before it, right? This collision tree, it copies all of the data, so it stores it over there. Yeah. Anyway, so that was Monday and Tuesday last week. Good fun. The rest of the week was Fmod. And it was sound. It was music and sound effects. Holy moly, Fmod's amazing. 10 out of 10. Best thing I've ever used. Oh my god. So I'd been fiddling around with a few different audio softwares before, right? And they are just they kind of all suck. They're not nice to use, you know. They don't want you to use them, right? Like if you used FL Studio, it's just like, I was like, hey buddy, you better have gone to university to study this shit, or else you're fucked. Fmod was made for idiots, and I love it. It's so great, and there's so many demos, and like even the code samples and stuff like that are just fantastic. And apparently it just works with ECS. My buddy just sent me some code for that. It's so good. So I spent last week kind of setting it up, putting in the project. It works. It's great. I spent like 2 days just looking for music. Not too much luck. Actually, I spent like 3 days. It was a long time that I was just listening to like free music or paid music and stuff like that. But I just, you know, DJs, they're something special. I don't know how they do it. I just don't know how they find all these fantastic tracks and stuff. And whatever. So, but I did at least set up a nice little radio thing. So how this works is that we have different like logic tracks, right? And so in the game, you'd say like, oh, swap from so set track ready is track ending, and then you go to track 8 or something like that, right? And what it's gonna do is, if I was on track 0, it would be playing inside of this big loop here, right? And then at beat, if track ending was true, then this thing is just gonna jump over to the to this end section over here, play it out, and then it's going to say like, okay, you can actually start transitioning to the next song here. And then inside of this, that's when it would swap over to here, and then this thing would be doing its intro. And it works really well, and it means that in the game we don't get any like music cutting. I could have just done some fading and stuff like that, but I'm a big fan of actually having like, you know, an outro section, and that's what this is. This is I set this up so it's an actual like outro section, and I did that on all these different songs, which works really well. So I'm very happy with this. This one didn't actually have an actual outro, so I did have to fade it out. Whatever. Yeah. So that was Friday. Now this week, Monday, sound effects. So I had to get the spatializer thing set up, so for all my sounds, so they have like a min-max distance for all the ones that I've implemented. A bunch of these are empty, but like, you know, artillery launch, artillery explode, whatever. So that's pretty cool. I set up one-shot entities inside of my game, which ended up being hell and just awful. So well, it could have been so much simpler, right? And I did this to myself. But what happened was, so I wanted my sounds to be able to like, or I wanted my entities to be able to just kind of like hold a GUID effectively, and then like inside of their authoring component. And so if we have a look at projectile authoring, so inside of entities, right, what you do is, if you want to make a projectile, so we'll go to projectiles, artillery. So if we want to create a projectile, right, what we do is we attach a bunch of authoring components to a prefab, right? Unity at some point goes, like whenever there's a change, goes through, bakes all of these into actual like entities that it just kind of can store in memory. And so these are the things that are sent into the build. These prefabs are not, I think. And that's great, because it's really optimized, and it ensures that the same data is sent to every single platform, which is very important for, you know, desync, whatever. But when you're doing this authoring thing, you have the option to be able to create additional entities, right? And I was like, oh, that's fantastic. So what that means is I can just you know, put in like a GUID, like an F1 GUID, the sound to play on spawn or something like that. And then I can create an additional entity. I can set that whole sound up, and then I can like link it, right? And I could do like add component to the, you know, to the actual entity that I've actually like created right here. So this is like, the projectile would be the parent, right? And so it would be like, you know, spawn that sound to play on spawn thing. The extra goes this, whatever. And it would be kind of like this. Create additional entity, right? It would be kind of like this, right? And I'd be creating like an additional entity for the sound to play on spawn, and I'd be spawning it, whatever. And it would be like, it would be nice. But apparently, when you create an additional entity, it's kind of linked to the thing that made it. And so what this means, and this sucks, what this means is that when the projectile spawned that entity in, when the projectile died, it would also delete the thing that it spawned in. I didn't do any linking. I didn't touch the linked entity buffer. If anyone ever tells me that I did something, I don't know what the fuck I was doing. But it didn't work out. And it was just deleting the sound like too early because this projectile that I had was like technically it like existed for like 1 frame. So you just hear this click and the explosion sound would start and then it would just go away. It was terrible, obviously. But yeah. So so anyway, and I tried a bunch of different things to fix that, right? I tried like trying to like manually get rid of the entity from the linked entity buffer inside of like a system, but apparently you can't do that because you can't. Baking systems can't access. They don't have access to the linked entity buffer, apparently, or something. I don't know what's up with that. But just be warned. If you're trying to create additional entities, maybe just don't do that. Oh, also, if you're using if you're using a baking system, I gotta look right over here. This is where I am. I gotta look right. Hold on, I'm just moving. I'm moving this so I don't have to. I can never see my camera. There we go. That's nice. All right. If you're ever using a baking system, don't try to create entities in there. They will be deleted. I didn't know that. I should have read the documentation, I guess. I don't know why I would have assumed that you could make entities during the system that makes entities. Anyway, we're gonna move on. So, that was Monday. We have sound effects in the game now. They don't sound good, but that's okay. We're gonna work on that. Yesterday, we worked on sound effects, walking sound effects. That was just a basic loop thing. But as I was working on this, I kind of noticed that my character was just jittering up and down on the ground over and over again. And it turns out that so, jump back to the start of this whole diary. The FP operations that I was using was so low precision that it was just causing like just everything to be really noticeable, like all of this stuff. Now, because I'm gonna jump back to the fact, right, that my fixed point numbers have 16 bits of decimal precision, right? So 2 to the 16. Right? 65,000, 1 divided by 65536, right? That's enough precision for a video game to see yourself not jittering on the planet, right? No worries. Oh, but wait a second. What if we take the square root of one of those numbers? Ooh, that's bad. Ooh, that's bad. That's the So, in the end, just need to be really careful with the ordering of any of my operations. Yeah, so I can go to some of my methods that I actually had to fix. So this is my ignore this quantized thing. So for example, getting the torus circle center. So where okay, new information. The game is on a torus, right? You're on a torus planet, and so very often, multiple times, many times per frame, I have to actually find where the center slice of the donut, where the center slice of like nearest to you is, right? And so, you know, the way that I was doing it is I was using like I was getting the so this is on the XZ plane, right? And why am I fucking using my hands? I can just show you. Look, this is a torus. There you go. And so there's the like the X and Z plane. I don't know which one it is. And I needed to find the kind of like the point on the center scribing circle that you were closest to, and I have to do that very often, right? And I was doing just like this angle thing, and then, you know, cousin sign. That's bad. That's super bad. Don't do that. Do this. This is much better. Wow, this is, it's just a square root and a div. Of course, the square root loses a shitload of precision, just an enormous amount, but it's losing less precision than these methods. These methods are not. I gotta avoid all trig bad, trig not good with FP. Very unfortunate that I chose to make my game on a fucking Taurus. Okay, moving forwards. So I also had to change this method, the snap to surface, and so we can see the if I go to where am I get? So if we have a look at Taurus Mapper, so we can see the old implementation of this. Where's the old implementation of this? Eh? Right. Yes. Okay. Yeah, so we can see the old implementation of this. So before I was taking the cycle center plus the normal, and I was calculating the normal by normalizing, right? Bad. Square root in there, divide in there, not good, right? And I was multiplying the normal by the actual, like, kind of surface of the torus. And so this is because this method actually, right, it snaps the surface, so it gets you the point on the surface of the torus, right? And so you can imagine that you just find where the circle center is, and then you get the radius, and you just multiply. So if I'm like out here, I just get the normal point in that direction, and I multiply by the radius. But this order of operations is very low precision. So the new order of operations, where I kind of just like try and make the biggest number on top and the biggest number on the bottom, and then just do that, this actually ends up having enough precision that the jittering is gone. And so now that means I can go back to actually implementing the walking sound effects, which I did, but it was just a silly loop. And so what I actually need to do now, today, what am I doing today? Is I need to tie walking sound effects to a trigger inside of the animation system, which shouldn't be too hard. I should just be able to get to my character. Look at this fucking funny guy. And walk. Here we go. And cylinder. There we go. I need to attach an event inside of their animation at a particular time, whenever they actually need it. So when their not that one, when their step is. I also probably just need to change this animation because it doesn't look very good. So like here is where I'd put in a step, and here, I guess. And then that would send an event off to Fmod, and that would actually play some audio. So that's one task. The next task is to actually turn back on music, balance audio. I've turned it off because it was distracting me. There's this jazz maybe also distracting me. And also, I need to add in some more sound effects for like enemy on hit, like when you hit them with something. And finally, and this is a big one, I need to put an actual timer in the game. So, for context, this game is... I'll show some gameplay. Early gameplay, I might add. Don't judge me. Judge me. Do it. I need the hate. So you can hear the... I hope that's getting picked up, but the awful footstep noise. It doesn't sound right at all. It sounds so fucking goofy. Okay, but this game is it's like it's like a Vampire Survivor clone effectively, right? But focused on multiplayer. I'm pulling things from like Night Rain and Rabbit and Steel, if you've seen those games. So like MMO like raid boss. Oh yeah, I guess yeah, MMO raid stuff. Yeah, because you know you're gonna be as a group, and you're gonna be pulling enemies and killing them and stuff, and you gotta navigate around the map, like you know, and you figure out like a route to go, right? And like, oh, I'm gonna have to go here. There's all these events, right? And we gotta clear those out, but we need a timer, so like Risk of Rain or Night Rain, right? Like Risk of like the timers incentivize actually like when the run ends. Risk of Rain is a really good timer where it's like the enemies just increase, right? And difficulty just goes up. It's similar to I mean, it's similar to Vampire Survivor, right? Where the time is passively pressuring you and you know there's a fixed duration. And Night Rain as well, which has just like these major events that happen at the end of the day, and then the next day happens major event and then final boss, right? I'm a big fan of that, probably because I've been playing too much of that game. Yeah, so I'm just gonna spend time today trying to think of the timer and what to do for it. Yeah, that's it. All right. So tomorrow's diary is gonna be a lot more consistent and probably a bit shorter than this one, I think. I might only upload these once I get like a week's worth. We'll see.